Richard Red Nightingale, United States Marine Corps, Korea. Richard's one of my many Korean War veterans featured in my film, Korea the Forgotten War. I interviewed him January 10, 2006, almost 18 years ago, folks, in Wichita, Kansas, along with a lot of other veterans from that time, and just fond memories of my time with Richard. He passed away in 2014, and I'm just grateful I have his story here. He served with Item Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, 1st Marine Division, had a tank MOS, but ended up just fighting with the infantry in Korea. Just, again, another story from the Korean War, the Chosin Reservoir, the brutalest, coldest battle in history that I can remember. And Richard was there, and God bless him. God rest his soul. I want to thank Brandon Glidden. Brandon, thank you again, brother, for sponsoring one of these Korean War stories. Brandon's made it available for you to learn a lot about Korea, helping me get these stories out. So Brandon, thank you as we continue on our trek and our path. God bless you, sir. Folks, if you'd like to sponsor a story like Brandon, there's information in the video description. In the comment section of the video, you can donate to my work, or you can go to larrycappello.com and click on Sponsor a Vet, see pictures of my veterans, include their name in the sponsorship, and I'll do the rest. Voices of History Radio is going strong, being listened to now in over 40 countries across the world, and it just touches my heart. I tune in, and people from all over the world, Sweden, Australia, the UK, Canada, Mexico, United States, Australia, all over the world listening to this 24-hour-a-day programming, and I invite you to tune in, especially with the school year starting. Get it into the hands of your kids. The teachers should use this as educational material in the classrooms. There's nothing in the history books about this, and you're getting first-hand accounts. Teachers told me as I traveled that history is best learned from those who were there. I've got the stories, folks. I've got the stories. So take advantage of the radio station. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to have it on the air, and I'm very grateful for that. So, okay, folks, I think that's about it for now. Short introduction. Richard Nightingale, just a great story from Korea. And he did receive a Silver Star for his actions in Korea. I want to highlight that. A Silver Star and a Purple Heart for being wounded. So he's a decorated veteran from the Korean War. Was just a very humble man. His nickname was Red. So God bless you, Red. And just thank you again, Brandon, for sponsoring this story, making it possible for others to hear. So thank you for subscribing, sharing this video, and I'll talk to you next time. God bless you. One of the film documentaries I'm working on is Korea, and so that's the storyline. And really, I'm learning as I go with Korea. My father was in the Korean conflict, but he never told me anything. He's dead. So, but I think first of all, you were the 1st Marine Division.
Yeah.
Was there a regiment, a division?
Item Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines.
In your MOS, what were you?
I had a tank MOS, but during that period of time, tanks weren't utilized very much, so they had no casualties. So I got through in a trench line with a M1 and 8 rounds of ammunition, but I was fortunate that I knew 50 calibers, so I got a bigger bunker and a little. That's about how it went.
Richard, give me just a real brief synopsis of Korea, maybe why we were there and who we were fighting.
Okay, we were fighting the Chinese. And how this all happened. China actually attacked Korea. And so the Koreans, they were militarily wasn't too well organized, so they contacted us to come and help them. So we went over there, and it was in 50, I'm not too sure, I think it was 51 when it started. But we at first there in Korea, we flat got kicked pretty bad. because they pushed us clear back. And then they had the Incheon landing, and the Marines got back. They got in and they pushed them back out again. And then there was confrontations back and forth. And then it finally, where I got involved in the thing was, we was down to trench warfare, just like World War I. Trench lines were as deep, you could walk, but your head had to stick so you could look over them. And then you had, that was your main line of resistance, and that ran all the way along there. But you had outposts that was out there, maybe 1,000 yards or so. And they were strategic ground, high ground. And you took your turn to go out there on the outpost. Now, like when I got there, there's a deal in that one book about it. When you got there, well, I had about 2 weeks of, they familiarized us with what was going on and stuff. And then I went to the main line of resistance. Kind of funny how I got there. The helicopters we had back then was an old Zahorsky looking, dumb looking thing. But anyhow, they put 4 of us guys in there. I'm going to brag a little bit about the efficiency of the Marine Corps. There was 4 of us guys. They took us all over there. And when they dumped me out, I was the last one. But they knew my name, and they knew where I was supposed to go, and everything else that I had never seen anybody. I was in there on a helicopter and down, and a guy, and I said, "Where do I go?" He said, "Just go right, and a guy will pick you up." And I went right about 15 yards, and there was a guy, Nightingale, and I said, "Yes, sir." So I was in. And then I stayed there for at least 2 weeks. And a lot of things that I was doing was just listening to what the guys told about coming off of the outpost, sitting with field glasses, looking. Get yourself aligned with how things were going. So then I took my turn out there. First outpost was Vegas. And the wind was out of the north, 30 mile an hour, and just colder than oil diggers. And I swore to God, if I ever got out of that place alive, I was never going to get that cold again. Oh, it was miserable cold. Now, a little funny thing I don't know what you want to do, but...
Let me have you keep your hand down.
Yeah, okay. Well, I come down, there was a little funny thing. I was standing out there on the dang north side of that hill, and a guy came out of CP, and he said, "Hey, Whitey." Well, they called me Whitey out over there, cutting my eyebrows. He said, "Would you like some split pea soup?" And I said, "Split pea soup?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got something to warm me up." He said, "But I ain't got nothing to put it in." So I kind of reached up here to where the fighting pit was, and I finally found a sea ration can. I stuck my finger in there and I wound that thing all up and beat all the dirt out of it. And that stuff tasted so good, and it warmed me up. And I thought, boy, I better save this can. He might come back. So I set that can down there, and lo and behold, he didn't come back. But when the sun came up, I looked inside that can, there was an inch of dirt in it. But it tasted so good and felt so warm. And after we had a lot of, Gooks threw a lot of mortars at us there, but there was no attack. No, it was just harassing fire is basically what it was. They just antagonized you throwing them mortars in. And from there, then I went to Boulder City. No, wait, I'm getting this all mixed up. From there, I went to Dagmar. Okay, now the Dagmar was the first firefight I got to, and that's where this guy I was telling you about a while ago, Henneman was involved. Him and I basically was clear on the west end of Dagmar. The trench line ran down, and then a curve that went around the hill like that, and then the CP was back over here. But the Chinese, when I was telling you about the harassing deals with the mortars, there were 60 millimeter mortars, small mortars. But their base plate and the arms that they had, like your stand here for your deal, they could put a 120 mortar in that same base plate. Well, when they hit us that night, they took out the whole forward slope in 3 rounds. Because you see, the stuff was already there. They'd already shot a deal with that little small mortar. So him and I was on this side, and I don't remember who was all on that other end there. But we finally held that thing. And of course, they had some reinforcements came in when they finally figured out what the heck was going on. But it was the first firefight I got into and the first time I shot anybody, you know. And that's a different experience too, that first time you think, what have I done? You know. And but then your second thought is this is survival, basically. So I never had any problem after that. And then after that hill, let's see, then we went to, it had to be OP2. Yeah, went to OP2. Now that thing was kind of funny too. That was along with the demilitarized zone there, where they went to Panmunjom, and they had loudspeakers up there giving us junk, you know, and of course we give them junk back and everything else. Nothing really happened there either. It was just a stalemate because we could not fire this way because that rounds might land in that demilitarized zone, and of course they being on that side, they could. You know, so basically nothing happened. And then there's an area, you know, the Marines were in Corps Reserve, but I can't quite remember what time that, because see, the Marine Corps works on threes. Like you got a hill here, so you'll have two platoons or two squads or whatever, how many people it takes to cover that hill. And you'll have one in reserve. So in case anything happens, you got these reserve guys to come up and help you out. And Boulder City, that was the thing. I really don't know how to start with that thing because we were in reserve. And I got to mention another guy here. The guy's name was Bear, and he says we went on to Boulder City twice, but I can only remember once. But there's some conflicting stuff there. He might be right on that stuff. Because I was a PFC. Bear was a buck sergeant, but I was the squad leader. Now that don't ring no bell with anybody else, probably, but it didn't figure, but see, maybe that's right what he said about we went on there twice, but like I say, so they took us out there in trucks and took us up there. And just before we got to the base of the hill, the Gooks found out we were coming. And so they dropped in a whole bunch of mortars on. I got a picture of that in there somewhere. But we got back on the hill, and there was a group of guys over here in a pretty good sized foxhole, but they were. I'm not bragging, but somebody had to take control here. Because something was screwed up. And I told him guys, he says, you got to spread out. One grenade's going to get you all. It was just a whole bunch of them, just one dang deal. I said, let's get organized here. Let's go with this. Yeah. So we did that. That old Bear, he came up there, and I could see them Chinese out there. Yeah. And I had a Browning automatic is the most wonderful rifle you'll ever shoot in your life. I mean, that's my opinion anyway. Well, I had a Browning, and that thing, you put it on slow fire, and there's a spring in there. You stretch that spring out, and you put that thing on slow fire. It's go budu, budu. It's just about how fast it will go. But you can see them Chinese. It's about like them houses out there. You can see them about that far. And I laid that thing on a sandbag and just squeezed it like that. I just moved. As you move like this, the timing element, I mean, you had to, funniest thing to say, you had to get yourself under control to be able to do that. But we cleaned up pretty soon, and then we started running out of ammunition. But when we came up the hill, we had saw a bunch of bandoliers. Looks like little sacks. They got M1 clips in them. And so we went and got those things and brought them back. And it was dark. And Bear was unloading the rounds out of them little clips, and he putting it in the Browning magazine. Well, pretty soon that magazine got slick, and I thought, boy, Bear must really be, hot, cold, sweating or something. But it turned out to be, when the sun came up, it was blood off his fingers from shoving them things through. And see, and ironic thing about this, I got a Silver Star for what I did. Bear was right there with me, with split thumbs, split fingers, and didn't get nothing.
Tell me why you got the Silver Star. Tell me
Well, that was this the whole thing on Boulder City. The whole thing was on Boulder City. And it was 2 days, 24th and 25th, and it was a continuous. It was just everything was just coming. A lot of incoming. They were trying to get in there because get a little synopsis on that too. If they would have took that hill, they would have had a path right back to Pusan again. So we'd be there right now. But they told us, I forgot about this, but they told me when I got on that when we went up that hill, since I was a squad leader, the old skipper, he says, you guys go back and take that hill or don't come back. And so basically what we did, and we stayed there and done the best we could with everybody, and that's kind of one little thing too. The Chinese make mistakes too. When I went to, Polly once, and I went to see, Polly's my wife. We went to see Bear and his wife. And we got to talking and carrying the thing out. And Bear said, remember that grenade? And I said, no, I don't remember no grenade. But the Goose had him Russian, or like the old Germans, potato masher grenades and stuff. And after we got talking about it, I got thinking about it, I did remember it. And that old grenade lit about right there, but it didn't go off. They had to pull a little string on that thing, and that guy was so dang nervous when he threw that thing, he didn't pull that string. Because we eventually pulled that thing and threw it back at him. But anyhow, that's about the synopsis of all of that. And after, see, Boulder City was the end of the thing. It was the end of the whole schmear. And after that, we went back and just went back away from the MLR, and we built a new MLR, worked on trying it, and we dug foxholes and blew holes and stuff in the ground to make the new deal. And that was about it.
Well, I want you to tell me a little bit more about the cold. I mean, you said,
oh yeah,
if I ever get out of here. I mean, let's kind of break that down a bit. I mean, describe the cold and what happened maybe to your food or your
stuff.
And just talk a little bit about.
Okay, the food and stuff. When you was on the MLR, the main line of resistance, you pretty much had a little bit of a comfort there, because your trench line was deep, and your bunkers were there. But when you was on the outpost, you had to stand. You had to take your turn standing out facing that wind and stuff. And the food that we had there, when you didn't stay there. You took 3 or 4 hour turns of going out. So your food, we had a little bit of the old, you see those sterno cans, Well, that's what you took. How we done that? You took the like a can, this little old can of that stuff. You set it on top of that sterno, and you would sit there a little bit. Pretty soon it go pick. So then you pick it up, shake it, turn it over, set it back down again, and then when it went pink again, then you got that little opener up. Your food was warm. And when you're back on the main line of resistance back there, then you took turns. They had the hot chow for you back there. But the outpost things was the deal. And the wind, 30 mile an hour, because see the 6th Street at Halstead, that's the 38th parallel. And I mean, it was just, the wind was, like I said, the wind was 30 mile an hour and it was 30 below. And we did have some boots they called bunny boots. There was a funny looking rubberized thing it put on. They were supposed to not let your feet freeze until you're 50 below. But that wasn't quite true. And the thing was that if you had to run anywhere with them things or keep them on very long, you got what you call immersion foot. Your foot just turned white. And so we tried not to wear them damn things any more than we did have. And one good thing that did help us a lot was the flak jacket. That was the first time it ever came out. And it was a good thing, because it would not stop a 30-06 rifle. It wouldn't do that. It wouldn't stop a burp gun either. I mean, it would stop a burp gun. Say a burp gun guy shot at you from here to there, it would stop a burp gun, and it would stop shrapnel. But that AK-47 that they have, that they used and that they're still using, nothing will stop it. But like I said, main line of resistance, you had hot food, but when you got on the outpost, and I think I spent 2 weeks out there. And it was all heating it up with them little stereo cans.
You're squad leader, and you mentioned trench warfare, and what kind of combat? Is it hand-to-hand? What are you doing?
Well, how this worked over there is, the main line of resistance was there. So the main thing was out there in the outpost. So you had to go out there. Well, then the Chinese would try and come and take that outpost so they would have the high ground. So there's where the biggest share of the confrontations were. And how we got to Boulder City, what happened there, I got to discredit the Army a little bit. They had the Nevada cities, Vegas, Carson, Reno, there was another one, don't remember what the name of that thing was, but they were all basically hills like that. And they were located just like you did the state of Nevada. And that's exactly how they were positioned out there. That's why we call them the Nevada cities. And so they would try and take the hills, and so they could get the strategic position. And the only time I got involved trying to take a hill was just one place. I can't remember what the name of it was or anything else, but I had that 50 caliber machine gun. So when you get something like that, you fire what you call a range card. Okay, you say you swing the barrel over this like you got an object out there, say 600 yards. So you fire a round out there, and then you mark that spot where you fired it. So then you swing over here and you do the same thing. You make you an arc all the way across it with about a half a dozen rounds. Now you've got the distance. Maybe you don't have to. Later on you have to fire another one, but you don't want to fire a whole bunch of them because the gooks are going to know what you're doing. They're going to start throwing stuff at you. But you get this range card all figured out. So one night, the old skipper come up there, and he knew it. That I had good experience with the thing, and he said, "Hey," we're going to go over this hill, and he said, "We need some cover fire coming off the hill." He says, "They're not going to know we're coming, but after we hit the hill, we're going to need some cover fire." He said, "Will you fire a range card?" And I said, "Sir, I already have." So he patted me on the back. And when this thing all happened, and they brought a radio into me, and when they got ready to leave that hill, because far enough away I couldn't see what was going on, because we had hung a big old blanket about 6-7 feet in front of that deal, because it was night anyway. So when they gave me the deal, I had that 50 swung all the way over here. And when they told me how far off the hill they were, so I started sweeping, just back and forth like that. Because you had two knobs on it. One knob was for elevation and another one was for deflection. And I just waved that thing back and forth like that. And lo and behold, when the next day when the sun got up, a 50 caliber leaves pock marks. You can see them. You can see them pock marks all over the thing. They said I was within 10 yards of them all the way home. So I got lucky on that one, because I was pretty nervous about it, because what if I screwed up and come down too fast? I could have got our old men, but lucky I did. And a 50 caliber will put you down. Talking about putting somebody down too. This deal here on Boulder City, there was a Chinese guy there, big one, Mongolian. They're big people. Now I know I did not hit that guy with every round. There was no way. It just impossible. But he was out there at about where that car is out there, and I dumped that whole mag in that sucker. He dropped right there. And he was big. I mean, I'd never seen a Chinese that big, but so it had to be a Mongolian. But I got lucky in a lot of places. So I got wounded twice, and it was just shrapnel. But they had a one colored kid. He was he liked it. We joked around about a lot of stuff. He says, I know why you stayed on that hill and done that. And I said, why that? He said, well, he said you shot in the leg, you couldn't run. You shot in the head, you couldn't see. So anyhow, like I said, we had some fun over there.
Did you lose any close friends, wounded or killed over there in Korea?
Well, the only guy that I really was a good friend, well, Hanneman, of course, was, and of course, he didn't get nothing. But there was an Italian kid from New York named Greco. And he didn't get killed. He got killed on Dagmar. And he is an Italian kid, and his mom every month would send pepperoni and cheese. And the pepperoni was about this big. Oh, we talk about good. Oh, it was good. And that poor guy got took out he was on the forward slope. He got took out on the first round. And 120 more. Sometimes you find pieces, you know. And, war is a funny thing, but it has to be done. And wars are going to continue. We're in one over there right now. And I think the worst thing about it is, I'm not discrediting. Well, let me give a perfect example. Remember that one time the news media there said the guys didn't have any weapons? Okay, what happened? I talked to a kid that was on a Black Hawk and asked him about it. He said, well, you know what that was? He said, that was a misconception. He said, the Black Hawk, the people he was with, his organization had 31 people in it. Well, they had no casualties. But they always estimate the casualties. So they had some more people coming to replace the casualties, which weren't there. See, I didn't have no weapon when I went to Korea. They gave it to you when you got there. So same situation here. So then the news media said they didn't have any weapons. And they made a big hoop-de-doo out of it. All they had to do is take those people and put them where they needed them. And the weapons were there. And, but anyhow.
Well, you know, just the aspect of combat that you were in just intrigues me. And having talked to so many World War II veterans and the way they fought in World War II, and then we started in Korea and all that, and you referred to shooting somebody. I mean, that's something that everybody does in our life.
Yeah.
And you found it as a means of survival. It's
Yeah.
be killed.
Yeah.
Basically, is that instilled in you in your training? I mean, what prompts you to do? Is it just mere survival? I mean,
Well, I tell you, the big thing there, well, I think you accredit it to, there's an old saying about gunnery sergeants and warrant officers are the smartest people in the Marine Corps. Okay, those guys, you know, when we got over there, you know, got to Korea, and I'll tell you about that period of time we stayed there, and they people talked to us, you know. That's who talked to us. They told us about how things were going out there, what you had to do to stuff. Simple things like the Chinese have difficulty pronouncing their R's. Always comes out like an L. Like a joke about it is, the only way I can bring a context to this thing is, this guy had a butcher shop on this side of the street, and on this side it was a Chinese guy, had a laundry. Well, the old butcher shop guy would get up, he said, hey, Chung Fu, what day is it today? He said, it's Friday. Well, finally the old Chinese guy, he finally got around where he could say Friday. Well, he got around to it, and so he jumped the old guy about the Friday, and he said, yeah, it's Friday, you gleek blick. See, he got the word down, but he didn't get the whole thing. But those little things like that, about stretching this dang thing out on a Browning and taking not the flash hider, but taking the bipods off of that thing. That thing weighed 20 pounds. So you take them bipods off the front, weight difference. And just...
Well, when you were in your boot camp, when you were training, even after boot camp, I mean, were you conscious of the fact that you might kill somebody someday? I mean, did you ever think about that?
About that time, no. But I got to thinking about my period, how long I was going to be there. And if I I volunteered to go over there. And if I didn't volunteer to go over there, why, I'm going to spend a lot of reserve time, And I didn't thought, well, no, that's not a smart thing to do. So I was single and everything. So I said, well, I'm just going to go over there and do my dues. If I make it, hooray. And if I don't, I don't, And I felt responsible because, And so over there I went, and everything turned out good. And like I say, nice people. And I've got to give the Marine Corps credit. When you go through boot camp, they're going to make you or break you. And they're just, and I'll tell you another big thing. The way I talk to some of them guys, if I'd have got, there's credibility. Say you got 10 guys went on this dang hill. When you get done with what you're doing, you want 10 guys to come back, one way or the other. The Marines will do that. And we run into one situation, and it's the Chinese too, on one hill. And they came back to get their dead too. They say the Chinese has no honor about dying and all that sort of stuff, but they do. And they respect things. And that's what I like about, I knew darn well that if anything did happen to me, I would be accounted for.
Well, a question that I'll ask the World War II guys a lot of times is, they saw so many of their friends die and get killed on some of the places. And I'll ask you the question, why do you think you came back? I mean, you obviously survived, you came back home and you lived your life. I mean, did you ever question that? I mean, because you saw a lot of death and dying.
Yeah.
And
well, I think, like I say, that first guy there, I thought, what did I do, And then after I heard about a few of the atrocities that the Chinese people did, then that gives you an incentive that's like, for how it turned out, the only way I could explain that thing. Did you ever go rabbit hunting or deer hunting or something, Same thing. I mean, that sounds probably kind of crude, but you're there for a purpose. Purpose, defend your country, defend your honor, and you just do it. And that's one thing the Marine Corps instills you in there. Semper Fi, always faithful. And
what are your thoughts today looking back to Korea? I mean, do you think about it? What significance does that have in your life, and maybe where our country's at today? What do you think about that? What are your thoughts about Korea today?
Korea today, the only way I can express that, look at South Korea. They're an economic nation probably because of us. And North Korea, the only thing they're working on is trying to make some bombs. Their people are in bad a mess too.
But as far as the war itself, I mean, looking back 55 years or what have you, I mean, does it have any significance in your life, the fact that you fought that battle? I mean, how do you think about that today?
Yeah, I'm proud of what I did. I've got a wonderful family, and if I hadn't done what I was learned to do in the Marine Corps, look where I would be now. And it was probably, there's some of them Chinese guys that I wasted there that look what they're missing. That's the only thing that kind of bothers me about the guys dying, is that look what they missed. They missed a wife, the family, the whole, they missed a lot. But someone, somewhere, somehow, someone has to sacrifice, We can't, conscientious objectors aren't going to keep the country moving.
And that leads me into another question that I ask all the veterans. What does freedom mean to you, Richard?
It means a heck of a lot. If I wanted to say I didn't like you, I could say that. I could say that and get away with it. You might punch me in the nose or something, but nevertheless, you have freedom of speech. And if you really want to understand, like I talked to that kid from Nam, and it was the same thing over there. Korea. A guy asked me, he said, would you like to go back to Korea just to see? And I said, no, I wouldn't not want to. He said, why not? I said, that damn place stinks. So what do you mean? I said, well, those people over there, the actual people that living in there, rice is their main subtle deal. Okay, when they go to plant, and then they have a community outhouse. That thing's bigger than this room, twice as big as this room. All the population use that outhouse. And when they get ready to plant their rice, they fertilize it with the human excrement. And that place stinks. And I was lucky after the thing was all over, got to go to Japan for 4 days R&R. Came back, and on the way back was coming into land, an old C-47, and I could smell that damn stuff right then. But and this kid from Nam, I asked him, I said, about how's things going, so on and so forth. He said, yeah, he said, but it's the one thing people are forgetting. He said, there's human waste running right down the curbs. Sanitation is...
What, you referred to it, but a follow-up question, what about the price for freedom? What would you tell a young person today that knows nothing about war or World War II, Korea, Vietnam? What would you tell them about the price for our freedoms?
Well, it could be a big price. But for that person's family, for his own well-being, he should, if his requirement is to go, he should go. Someone has to help and keep this country as well as it is. And I mentioned before, I could talk to anybody I want to, and I can stick my chest out and say, hey, Bub, I done mine, you know. But we do have a wonderful country, good education and everything. We got nothing to bitch about, really, nothing. I'm sure glad I was born here, I'll tell you that for sure.
What about the American flag? What does that mean to you?
American flag it's honor, great honor. And you need to respect it, put it upright, salute it. Our grade schooler at Halstead has a little deal they put on Flag Day, and our Legion group goes down there and we post the colors. They give their little program, show people how to fold a flag and all that sort of stuff. And we take the colors back and everything. Then they give us, it's Veterans Day is actually what it is to the Flag Day. And then we go to high school and they feed us a meal, you know, and honor all the guys and stuff. But
that's where you live, in your city?
Yeah.
What's the name of the city again?
Halstead.
Halstead, okay.
Halstead.
That's great that they do that. Back to Korea now, as far as the fighting, and I'm learning as I go, like I said. Were we fighting the North Koreans at all? Or was it just Chinese?
No, the North Koreans had been kaput. They were out. There was a few rocks, they call them the Republic of Korea. There was a few of them guys, but the biggest share of what we used them guys for was to carry stuff. Like say, for example, a perfect example of that would be, like on Boulder City, there was a bunch of dead Chinese there left. Yobo trains, what we called them. And they would come out there and they would carry those bodies back instead of us. And they filled sandbags. They helped dig the trench lines and stuff. But actual combat, they were wiped out the first time.
But you said the Chinese invaded Korea, North Korea, South Korea, and isn't the North Korean army bad too?
Well, that I can't answer you. I don't know exactly how much people they had. All I know is that the Chinese are the ones that, because see, I think, just to try and figure it out a little bit, the assumption would be that the North Koreans didn't think they could whip the South. So they had to have a little help, and that's where the Chinese come. And boy, they had numbers. They had a lot of numbers. Actually, I never saw this, but I've been told they had so many numbers that say that they charged the dang place, and this first bunch of guys all got shot up. Then the second group that come along didn't have any weapons, but they picked theirs up. Now that I've heard. I can't vouch that that's actually truth, but they did have numbers. And they thought, I suppose, they thought they were doing the right thing too, that we were probably the bad guys, see? You don't know what their thoughts were, but just an assumption. Now get a little dig on them people. They're in, I don't remember what, there's a Life magazine, and it shows this guy standing there with his hand like this. And the guys was taking, of course, they were taking photos of the guy. And when, just before the thing was getting shut down pretty well, we had these little Walker Bulldog tanks, screwed, like I've never seen anymore since then, but they would start bringing some stuff up, and they would take the dead and the wounded back. And this old Chinese guy, he asked me, he said, "Where's all the dead Marines?" And I said, "There isn't any." Well, I wasn't lying to him, there weren't any.
So you got a Silver Star. I mean, tell me again briefly, what exactly was the citation you got the Silver Star for? Just bravery? You said along the line there. I mean, did you do
Well,
something?
I guess because I kind of assumed, got everybody organized, got it all strung out, and where Bear and I were, if him and I hadn't have been there, and we're lucky with that old Browning like we were, we burned up 130. But that Browning, we sat there, and if it would have been for that, them gooks would have took that hill, and then we'd been up creek. But like the old skipper told me, he said, "Whitey," he said, "you guys better take that hill and don't come back." I got one picture in there, but I think pretty sure that picture's a fake. But it don't make, I can see what they're doing, but it don't make any sense.
What was the hardest part of the fighting for you? I mean, what was the most difficult thing that you either experienced or had to do while you were in Korea?
Well, the most actual pain thing was the dang winter, the wind and cold. But as far as I have one little guilt. I might as well say that thing. We after we assumed the hill was secure, they had the dang, see, there was a whole line of bunkers along there, and you had to go in there one way or the other. And I don't remember who the officer was in charge of that, because it was a cleanup thing, And he said, "Grenade every one of them bunkers." Well, it was an order, you had to do it. But I was real skeptical. How do we know that one of our guys wasn't in there? And like I say, that's the only guilt I had about the thing. But luckily, after it got light enough and stuff, we went in, and luckily we didn't. But I felt that was a bad order.
Richard, how would you describe combat in a few words? What would you describe combat as? I mean,
well, it's survival. You put yourself against that other person, and basically, it's person to person, but still a broader viewpoint is you're there to help the United States at home. Nobody else will have to come over here, I know that's about the only. It's a responsible thing. That's why you enlisted to do it. And they say, I've heard rumors, can't hardly believe them. They say there's only 2% of the people in the service actually see combat. Now, I don't know I've heard that several times, but I don't know if that's right or not. But to me, I liked the Marine Corps. It had it was just good honor and everything. And to me, it was, you got to pay your dues, And
tell me about the camaraderie of the Marine Corps, then and now.
oh, it's still. I tell you what, I went and saw that movie, Jarhead. That was the greatest disrespect to the Marine Corps I ever saw in my life. There was 4-letter words in every sentence, and the same one begins with an F. Same one all the way through. We had drill instructors. I still got their picture of them in there. Sergeant, Metis and Corporal Anderson. And I remember those guys' names from 1951. And those guys they could intimidate you with no four-letter words. And I tell you something that could, this might sound screwy. First time we got into boot camp, first time we had to wash your clothes. You had a little brush about this long, bar soap. You had to wash all your clothes. All your clothes had, you had a little stamp, all your name was everywhere. Caps, socks, everything had your name on it. First time we did that, they had us lined up out there. And old Anderson, Metis, he carried a little swagger stick about this long, stuck it on his arm. He was a salty sucker. And Anderson had a little stool. I thought, what's he going to do with that stool? And he set that down, and old Metis went along with his swagger stick, and he picked up a pair of shorts and brought them out here like this. Of course, the kid's name was on there. Called the kid up there, and he stood on that stool. Metis stuffed that thing, because it had a couple brown marks in it. He stuffed that thing in that kid's mouth, and he chewed until that sucker was clean. And then to get about the respect for them guys, normally when you got out of boot camp and you went to a reviewing stand, here was a reviewing stand over here, and you walked at 4 abreast like this, and he went by, he said, eyes right, so all the people looked at you. When we went down there, instead of walking 4 abreast, and I counted them before I left home, we had 70 guys in our dang thing. We turned the long way and marched down again. It was all straight through there. And those 2 GIs cried. And they were, you can't believe it, they were just, muscles were everywhere, And those guys cried because of this little simple thing like, no, it wasn't simple, but for a thing like that. And I have, the Marine Corps is, if anybody wanted to go to, say some kid had a little bit of a psychological problem or something like that, Marine Corps will either make you or break you. And if some of the kids I see messing around here now, boy, I'd like to have a drill instructor and put them through 12 weeks of Marine Corps. I think you would have a lot better society. But one other thing, our judicial system is a uniform code of military justice. You couldn't make that guy eat that shorts. But back then we called the old rocks and shoals. And actually before I left to Korea, I chased prisoners for a little while.
What was the purpose of Korea? I mean, I'll ask the Marines that were at Iwo Jima, why did we need to take Iwo Jima? Well, why did we need to be in Korea?
Right now, that's kind of hard to say for right now, but if the Chinese could do that thing all back over again, get that organized, and they could get us back down to Pusan again, they'd have see all the stuff that they would have from South Korea that we helped them do, and you're just keeping them peaceful, I guess you might say. But the last part of that thing, it was a year in there. And the last part, the actual combat was that ended in July 24th and 25th. And I got there in December. The combat ended in July. Then I had to stay from July to December again. That's when we rebuilt the MLR and had our R&R and stuff and all that.
I think I've asked you all the questions. You covered it really well. That you talked about some things I never even heard of. So at the end of my interviews, I always like to ask the Marines or whoever I'm interviewing to do something for me. And I know we're inside, you don't have a cover, but I always like to have a salute into the camera. Could you do that for me?
Yeah, be glad to.
This time will be right into the camera. Go ahead, Richard.